Welcome to the Deep Dive, crafted just for you. We've pulled together a pretty massive stack of sources today. We're looking at a career that's, frankly, it's a masterclass in modern media versatility.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Thomas A. Shillue, the comedian, actor, author, and host.
Yeah, it's quite a list.
Right, so if you've ever felt maybe overwhelmed by that need to specialize in just one field, well, this profile, it's kind of the antidote. We're looking at a performer who can, sing Roxanne in a barbershop quartet one night.
Which is amazing in itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, he's hosting a 3-hour syndicated talk radio show. It's quite the range.
And that tension, that range is exactly what we're here to analyze, really. Our mission today is to unpack the whole professional journey of Thomas Shillue. We want to trace those foundational skills he developed, way back in stand-up and theater.
Right, the roots.
Exactly. And see how those skills were strategically applied across these vastly different media platforms. We're talking Comedy Central satire, network late-night musical comedy, and then finally settling into the pretty demanding world of talk radio and political commentary. We need to kind of figure out let's say, the operational structure behind that kind of successful adaptability. How does one person do that?
It really is a career path defined by, I guess, relentless pivoting.
Right.
But, like you said, the core skill set, the timing, delivery, the character work that seems constant.
That holds it together.
Yeah. So before we jump into those really fascinating transitions, let's just make sure we've got the essential biographical stuff locked down, just for context.
Absolutely. Good idea. So Thomas A. Shillue, born June 13th, 1966. Place was Norwood, Massachusetts, which, kind of gives him that distinct New England voice and perspective you hear sometimes.
Definitely pick it up.
His educational background, also pretty solid. He went to both the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and Emerson College.
Oh, Emerson, right. Known for communications, theater.
Exactly. Strong programs there. And he's been active professionally since 1993. That's key.
Wow, since 93. So we're tracking, over 3 decades of work?
Yep. Over 30 years. Spanning live performance, acting, writing books, and broadcast hosting. Understanding that foundational commitment, that deep history and performance is really key, I think, to analyzing the later shifts in his career.
Okay, great foundation. Let's unpack this then. Let's dive straight into Section 1, the early comedy landscape and stage work. Our sources really seem to indicate that his professional roots were just deeply grounded in the craft of live solo performance, stand-up and theater.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is that Shillue didn't seem to chase immediate TV fame,
Yep.
He built his foundation in, specialized, high-effort live theater and stand-up, which, that requires constant writing, ruthless self-editing, stamina, lots of it.
Oh, totally. It's a grind.
It is. And this dedication to the live performance craft, that's really the defining feature of his early path.
And we can see the caliber of that early commitment by looking at the venues and the specific shows he developed. Sources mention these notable solo shows like Supernormal and Dad 2.0.
Right.
Supernormal was at PS 122 and Dad 2.0 at the Ars Nova Theater. Now, for listeners maybe not familiar with the New York theater scene, just naming the venue doesn't quite capture the significance, does it?
No, not at all. Precisely. PS 122, it's now Performance Space New York. It's historically known as this incubator, really, for experimental, boundary-pushing narrative performance. Very cutting edge.
Okay.
And Ars Nova, similarly, is this highly respected off-Broadway hub. They specialize in innovative theater and narrative comedy. So performing extended runs, multi-night runs at these places, it means you're succeeding in a very high-bar, critically engaged environment.
So it's proof he was developing these complex, sustained storytelling skills. It wasn't just, joke punchline routines.
Exactly. Not just 5 minutes at a club. This is long form.
And the themes of his shows seem instructive, too. Dad 2.0, that clearly points to him already exploring personal, observational, kind of nostalgic themes, right?
Yeah.
Fatherhood, cultural change.
Yeah, and that's material that proved really sustainable and adaptable later in his career. You see those threads pop up again.
Right.
And that work, it was critically recognized, by his peers in the comedy community. He didn't just participate, he actually won significant honors. Specifically, the ECNY Awards, that's the Emerging Comedians New York Awards.
Oh, yes.
He won Best One-Person Show in 2010. And I think critically, Best Storyteller in 2011.
Wait, hang on. Can we pause on that for a second?
Yeah.
Being recognized as Best Storyteller, that feels like a much deeper acknowledgement than just being labeled, funny.
It absolutely is. It validates his ability to construct an arc, right? To maintain tension, connect emotionally with an audience over like an hour or more. And this skill set, The ability to hold an audience with just a narrative without relying on, say, props or other people, that's the absolute core requirement for success in long-form, unscripted talk radio, which, of course, he would pivot to years later.
Oh, okay.
The stage was basically preparing him to hold a 3-hour broadcast alone.
Wow. That's a really powerful connection. Didn't quite see it that way before. Now, tied into this solo stage work is this defining professional relationship, his continuous work with Jim Gaffigan.
Oh yeah, the Gaffigan connection. It speaks volumes, I think, about his reliability, his stage presence. For years, Shillue frequently served as an opening act for Gaffigan on tour.
Which is no small thing.
No. Opening for a massive headliner like Gaffigan requires immense, instantaneous stage control. You have to warm up thousands of people who paid to see someone else.
Yeah, tough crowd sometimes.
Totally. And you have to do it with immaculate timing and solid material. It's like boot camp for stage excellence.
And their relationship wasn't just about opening acts, right? Our sources detail their collaboration way back in the late 1990s, a specific two-man show.
That's right, titled The North American White Male.
The North American White Male. That title itself is, well, it's a fascinating cultural marker, isn't it, for the late 90s?
It really is. In the late 90s, identity comedy was kind of starting to shift its focus, moving towards introspection, sociocultural observation. So performing a show with that specific theme suggests they were diving into the subtle absurdities, the societal expectations, the common tropes associated with, well, middle-class American masculinity at the time.
It feels like it sets up a kind of thematic continuity, that early exploration of cultural identity, observational humor focused on sort of domestic life. It ultimately informs his later book and a lot of his talk media persona, too.
Absolutely. It shows an early commitment to subject matter that resonates pretty widely.
Which you'd need for a national audience later.
Exactly. It demonstrates that the bedrock of his comedy wasn't super niche. It was rooted in these widely relatable middle American themes, essential for someone who's eventually going to command a national syndicated radio audience.
Makes sense. Okay, so beyond the dedicated theater and stand-up grind, the sources show him diversifying pretty early on. He started laying down these crucial footprints in traditional TV and film.
Yeah, taking guest acting spots.
Right, in major network shows, Spin City, Broad City, and the classic Law and Order.
Those roles are critical professional development, I'd argue. Spin City needs sharp comedic timing, ensemble chemistry.
Right. Fast pace.
Yeah. While Law and Order, that demands dramatic discipline, hitting your marks quickly, technically.
Very different skill set.
Totally different. This variety confirms he was actively honing his acting muscles across different genres, learning how to adapt his performance to the demands of a fast-paced production schedule, which is vital experience, for the rapid-fire production environment of cable news down the line.
Good point. And we also see him moving into independent comedy film. His 2009 appearance in Mystery Team.
Dark comedy, yeah.
He was actively avoiding being pigeonholed, it seems.
Yeah.
A trait that really defines his whole career, looking back.
Exactly. He was simultaneously a theatrical solo artist, a road comedian opening for a huge name, a network TV actor, and an indie film contributor. That multidisciplinary hustle right there, it establishes the stamina and the adaptability required for the big career pivots that came next.
Okay, that sets the stage beautifully.
Oh.
Which brings us to section 2, the transition to late night and sketch comedy. This is where he starts to build a more visible national profile outside the dedicated comedy club circuit.
And the first really significant shift in this phase is his work as a correspondent on The Daily Show on Comedy Central.
Right. Pre-Stewart departure, around that time.
Need to check the exact dates, but it was definitely a key period for the show, and for him, it's a crucial pivot point. It forces him to merge his performance skills with political satire, with news commentary.
Yeah, the demands of being a correspondent. They're different from stand-up, aren't they? You're not just telling your own jokes.
Right. You're often playing a character, interacting with real news footage, delivering scripted, highly edited segments.
And under tight deadlines, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. It requires improv skills, the ability to play the straight man or an exaggerated character, and a quick grasp of political nuance. All skills that translate perfectly to succeeding on those late-night news panels years later. He learned to work within the structure of media critique and political discourse, but with a comedic edge.
And this is where we hit what I think is the true aha moment for a lot of listeners. Something that really shows the almost dizzying range of his talent. The Ragtime Gals.
Oh, the Ragtime Gals,
Yeah,
yes?
this must have been, just a scheduling nightmare contrasting so heavily with his other work at the time.
It's the delightful detour, isn't it? It just proves his incredible vocal and performance versatility. Our sources highlight his regular appearances on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon as a core member of the Ragtime Gals.
Let's just take a second to truly appreciate the high-concept nature of this. It's a barbershop quartet, performing classic four-part harmonies, but applying that very specific, very vintage musical structure to modern pop songs.
Yeah, the physical comedy, the little costumes, the boaters, and the actual vocal skill required. It makes this far more complex than just a quick throwaway skit.
Oh, way more.
Yeah.
It requires precise, collaborative musical performance. He's not just delivering punchlines. He's executing complex vocal arrangements.
Often alongside the biggest names in music. Think about the specific examples the sources give us. Singing Sexy Back.
With Justin Timberlake.
With Timberlake himself. And maybe even more impressively, covering Roxanne.
With Sting.
With Sting. In four-part harmony.
Performing Sexy Back in four-part harmony with Justin Timberlake live on network television. I mean, that's the ultimate litmus test for musical and comedic discipline, right?
Exactly. It shows an ability to adapt his comedic persona to fit the high-polish, high-production demands of network late-night musical comedy. He had to be a master of character, timing, and vocal blend, all at once.
This ability to succeed in just completely opposite performance settings, the intimacy of a solo stage show versus the pure spectacle of a network musical segment, it's pretty exceptional when you lay it out like that.
It really is.
And somehow he was also maintaining his classic stand-up appearances during this time. Sources mention him performing with Conan O'Brien.
Right, showing he never abandoned his roots. He was just maximizing his visibility across all the major late-night platforms, spreading the net wide.
Spreading the net wide is right. And speaking of maximizing output, we really have to dedicate some time to this ambitious and initially misunderstood project he undertook, the 12 and 12 initiative.
Ah, yes, the 12 and 12. This project speaks directly to that stamina we were talking about, the kind required for his future radio career.
Okay, lay out the scope of 12 and 12 for us again, because it sounds completely insane for a working comedian already juggling TV roles and everything else.
It was, well, an act of Herculean creative discipline, basically, from November 2012 to October 2013. So for a full year, he publicly committed to releasing an entirely new album of material every single
album.
Whole album.
Every month for a year. Think about the production logistics. Writing it, testing it on stage probably, recording it, mastering it, releasing it. 12 distinct bodies of work over 365 days.
That pace. It just demands continuous creative generation and a level of professional discipline that, honestly, few comedians could probably maintain. It's a massive statement about his work ethic.
It is. It's a nonstop content machine. And the sources reveal this really fascinating anecdote about how the sheer scale of this venture intersected with his growing presence on cable news, specifically on the panel show Red Eye.
Okay, how did that cross-pollination play out? What happened? Well, because the commitment was just so extreme, an album a month. Viewers of Red Eye, where he was already a recurring panelist, they genuinely believed the promotion of these monthly albums was like an extended running gag.
You thought it was a bit.
Yeah, a fictional bit designed for the show. They just couldn't conceive that a working TV personality was maintaining such a relentless, high-volume, artistic output simultaneously.
Huh. So what does this anecdote really illustrate about his career strategy then?
Well, I think it perfectly illustrates the blurring of lines between his different professional identities. It got to the point where Shillue and Greg Gutfeld actually had to clarify on air, no, this is real, he's actually doing this.
They had to break the fourth wall, essentially.
Kind of. And the source material explicitly notes that this public clarification, hey, this is legit, led directly to a major spike in album sales for him.
Wow.
So this moment proves that his dedication to the stand-up hustle, the album creation, was validated and directly leveraged by his growing television visibility. It shows a successful, integrated, cross-platform business model in action.
The TV presence sold the performance art.
Precisely.
Okay, that is the ultimate strategic pivot point, isn't it? Because it brings us directly into Section 3, shifting focus to hosting and talk media. That relationship forged on Red Eye, and specifically with Greg Gutfeld, clearly became foundational to this whole next phase of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. His entry into the Fox News Channel ecosystem, it really began strategically with substitution roles. Since about 2014, Shillue had been stepping in to co-host The Five, usually subbing for Gutfeld when he was out.
Right, The Five, big daytime panel show.
Huge show. And that placement required him to transition from being primarily a stand-up storyteller to being a commentator on current political and cultural events. day in, day out. He had to learn the language and the pacing of political talk TV.
And that substitution work obviously proved he could handle the format, handle the pressure, because it paved the way for a really major role, the Red Eye hosting era.
Indeed. He became the direct successor. On June 22nd, 2015, he officially took over as the permanent host of Red Eye. That happened right after Gutfeld left to launch his own new program.
So this was the first time he was really commanding a solo anchor position on a major cable news network, right? Front and center.
That's right, first time carrying a show like that himself.
And he helmed that late-night desk for, nearly 2 years. Until the show's cancellation in April 2017. Do the sources indicate much about the specific style he brought to the Red Eye desk? Did it differ much from Gutfeld's original vision?
Well, he definitely maintained the show's sort of satirical, quirky panel format. That core remained. But Shillue brought his established strengths to it. The skill of a seasoned storyteller, like we discussed, and that knack for playing a variety of comedic characters or personas. He ensured the show kept its unique blend of, news talk and performance art. But then a really fascinating shift occurred immediately after Red Eye ended.
All right, I want to analyze that shift, because he immediately maintained his presence by joining Gutfeld, which was then called The Greg Gutfeld Show, as a permanent cast member or contributor. He went from being the lead host of one show back to being a key ensemble player on another.
Yeah, it raises an important strategic question, doesn't it? Was that shift from lead host back to supporting cast member a step down, or was it actually maybe a strategic elevation? How so?
Well, in terms of audience size and the show's overall prominence, Gutfeld quickly grew into a massive platform. Way bigger reach than Red Eye had.
Okay, yeah, true.
So by joining it as a permanent figure, he arguably traded the primary responsibility, the pressure of hosting, for the stability and the much wider visibility of being on a massive, successful late-night program. He leveraged his skills, the timing, the quick wit, the established persona to become this indispensable part of a winning ensemble. And his role in that ensemble relies heavily on the acting and character skills he'd been honing for years, right? Back in theater, on The Daily Show, we're talking specifically about his political character work and the pseudonyms he uses on Gutfeld.
That's exactly where his foundational performance training comes sharply into focus. He uses vocal mimicry, physical exaggeration, to create and maintain these specific satirical roles. Most notably, he appears frequently as this parody of President Biden, and sometimes uses the pseudonym Angry White Man, which is interesting because it's an explicit character listed even in his general bio. It's acknowledged as a bit.
Okay, let's try and analyze this strictly as performance craft. We need to stay impartial to the political content itself, obviously. How does his stand-up foundation inform the construction of these long-running impressions? They started around late 2019, sources say, and include parodies of figures like Joe Biden, Adam Schiff.
Well, the key here, I think, is theatrical discipline. Pure and simple. When you're creating a performance parody, a comedian relies heavily on isolating maybe just a few defining vocal tics or physical mannerisms, and then exaggerating them consistently.
Right, finding the hook.
Exactly. His stand-up training gave him the timing needed to deliver these performances within the fast-paced structure of a live panel discussion. It has to land quickly. Furthermore, using a broad kind of self-aware pseudonym like Angry White Man that allows him to adopt a defined comedic persona. It gives his commentary a specific character framework, almost like a theatrical role, rather than presenting it as purely his own unscripted opinion.
It's like high-level role-playing, but integrated into a news commentary format.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
This raises an important question, then, that really speaks to his whole career synthesis. How much does using these theatrical tools, the impressions, the character pseudonyms, the specific voice modulations, how much does that contribute to the show's overall success? Does it make the commentary more entertaining, more memorable for the audience?
Oh, I think significantly. It creates sustainable content, for one.
What do you mean?
Well, a punchline, a joke, it lasts a moment, right? But a running character, like his Biden impression, can be deployed night after night. It fosters viewer loyalty, becomes a recurring segment people expect. His theater experience taught him how to sustain a character over potentially years, not just for a few minutes in a sketch.
That makes a lot of sense. And his commitment to hosting? It didn't stop there. It continued to diversify. He took on that 2019 hosting gig on the Fox Nation's streaming platform show, the quiz show.
Right, which required a different energy again, quick factual delivery, game show host kind of vibe.
And even more recently, starting in July 2023, he began serving as a regular host of Fox News Saturday Night.
Yeah, that continued commitment to weekend hosting, it demonstrates the network's trust in his ability to actually steer the direction of a show, not just contribute bits to one. He's continually active, demonstrating this real breadth in his hosting capacity.
And crucially, let's circle back for a moment to his authorial voice, because that connects directly to those early stage themes we talked about.
Yes, the book. His 2017 book, Mean Dads for a Better America, The Generous Rewards of an Old-Fashioned Childhood. It feels like the print manifestation of his successful solo show, Dad 2.0, doesn't it?
It really does.
The book allowed him to formalize and expand on those nostalgic, observational, personal storytelling themes he'd been performing on stages like Ars Nova for years.
The book is almost a perfect example of his content ecosystem, when you think about it. The stage show proves the concept works, the television visibility gives him the platform and name recognition, and then the book expands the content into a new, permanent medium.
That continuous recycling and expansion of core material, it's a hallmark of highly disciplined career management. Very smart.
It shows that his most successful material, the stuff that really resonates, seems rooted in deep personal observation, whether it's delivered through a stand-up mic, a written chapter, or, as we'll see, a radio host monologue.
That analytical thread, yeah, it leads us right into Section 4, the radio presence and multi-platform synthesis. And this is arguably the most demanding phase of his career, I think. It requires a completely different type of stamina than even live TV.
Right. Long-form radio is its own beast.
It really is. And the move to talk radio, which requires tremendous vocal endurance, the ability to maintain focus for hours, it was rapid for him. On April 25th, 2017, basically concurrent with the end of Red Eye, he began co-hosting Fox News Radio. It was a 3-hour evening slot alongside Andy Levy.
Okay, so immediately jumped into long-form broadcast.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Demonstrated his capacity right away, and the expansion from there was quick, too. By July 2017, just a few months later, he began hosting his own dedicated weekday afternoon syndicated talk radio show, The Tom Shillue Show.
Running 3 hours daily, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern.
5 days a week, 3 hours a day. I mean, that is the definition of a continuous content machine. The grind is immense.
15 hours of engaging, mostly unscripted content every single week, plus all the prep time.
Exactly. And the reach of the show is significant, too. It's syndicated across Fox News radio affiliates. It's carried on SiriusXM's Fox News Talk Channel 450. This establishes him as a major national voice in a very competitive medium where that listener-host connection has to be incredibly personal and sustained.
Okay, let's really analyze the unique demands of this shift.
Yeah.
How did his background, the one-man show stamina we talked about, the Comedy Central correspondent training, even the Ragtime Gals musical precision, how did that specifically prepare him for the demands of long-form, mostly solo talk radio?
Well, we have to contrast the different forms of performance again, right? Stand-up is about these quick, intense bursts of energy. You rely on laughter for immediate feedback.
Yeah, you know right away if it's working or not.
Totally. Panel TV, like The Five or Gutfeld.
Wow.
It's about rapid-fire, concise contributions, fitting into an ensemble, playing off others. Solo talk radio, though, that requires the marathon endurance of a storyteller.
So the Dad 2.0 solo show experience becomes like the secret weapon here.
Absolutely. I think that's the linchpin. The foundational skill from Dad 2.0 was that ability to maintain audience engagement for, say, 90 minutes, alone on a stage, just with words.
Right.
Translate that to radio. It means he likely has the toolkit to sustain an engaging monologue, to fill dead air with relevant material, to structure segments coherently, and crucially, to keep listeners tuned in during those long commercial breaks, all through the power of his voice and his narrative structure.
What about the technical skills? Like, how does the musical discipline from something like the Ragtime Gals feed into his radio voice? Is there a connection there?
Oh, I think that's a beautiful synthesis, actually. Musical performance, especially harmony singing, requires incredibly precise voice modulation, pacing, projection, breath control.
Hadn't thought of breath control.
Yeah. On the radio, this translates directly to excellent microphone technique, ensuring his voice remains engaging, dynamic over 3 hours, avoiding that monotonous delivery that can just cause listeners to tune out instantly. His ability to hit precise notes and harmony means he understands vocal control probably better than many people who transition into radio from, say, purely print or even just panel TV backgrounds.
That's a fascinating point. And his correspondent experience, back on The Daily Show, that gives him the framework maybe to talk about the news without sounding like, a textbook reading.
Correct. It taught him how to integrate humor and character into news commentary, how to blend information and entertainment seamlessly, which is the gold standard for engaging talk radio. The entire career arc, when you look at it, it reveals a performer who is almost uniquely equipped for modern talk media, where the requirement is to be authoritative yet entertaining, informed yet engagingly opinionated. It's a tough balancing act.
It's truly a complex synthesis. I mean, our sources show a person who moves seemingly without friction between performing classic pop songs in perfect four-part harmony,
Generating brand new album material every single month for a year,
performing these intimate, personal, one-man storytelling shows,
engaging in sharp character impressions and political commentary on TV.
and then leading a long-form, daily syndicated talk radio show. It's kind of mind-boggling.
This kind of professional versatility is really remarkable in today's media landscape. He demonstrates this ability to adapt his personal brand, which seems rooted in that observational, often nostalgic cultural humor, to fit the specific structural and tonal expectations of radically different media institutions.
So the persona feels stable, but the delivery mechanism is incredibly fluid.
Well put, yeah. He hasn't fundamentally changed his core toolkit, it seems, the storytelling, the performance chops. He's just figured out how to apply that same toolkit across basically every conceivable media landscape, simultaneously, often.
Which speaks to an underlying discipline, right? Probably honed through those decades of live stage work we started with.
Precisely. His success isn't just about being present on multiple platforms. It's about leveraging the intense training of the stage, the timing, the character development, the sheer stamina to guarantee continuous relevance in a media world that's constantly evolving.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into how one foundational performance artist really conquered multiple media ecosystems, let's try and crystallize the key takeaway for you, the listener.
For me, what stands out most profoundly is the unique value of that deep performance training he has. He moves seemingly effortlessly from the high polish, high production value of network late night singing to the demanding, often rough and tumble environment of opinion talk radio and political parody TV. He really is a master of adaptation. Using those foundational skills of a stand-up comedian, the character work, the storytelling, the exceptional timing to thrive in these wildly disparate professional settings. It feels like his entire career has been treated as one continuous, structured performance, regardless of whether the audience is paying for a theater ticket or just tuning into a radio broadcast.
That stage training clearly provided the bedrock, the foundation for sustainable persona across all these platforms. We trace his path, right? From Massachusetts colleges to the demanding off-Broadway stage, through the satire of Comedy Central, and deep into the complex, often polarized world of modern cable news and daily syndicated radio. So if we look at the whole picture from, say, the North American white male exploring identity comedy way back when, to appearing nightly as a political impressionist on late-night TV now, it raises an important question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. How does an individual maintain authenticity, or at least a consistent connection with a broad audience, while constantly changing the medium, the tone, moving between highly personal storytelling and at times heavily partisan satire?
Yep.
Does that unwavering focus on performance craft, the stuff honed on the stage, does that serve as a kind of shield, maybe? Allowing the performer to inhabit these radically different network tonalities without losing the core of their own voice. That distinction, that space between the performer and the persona, that's something really worth exploring as you review the source material yourself.